First of all, a very good morning and thank you for organizing this conclave. It is a very important thought that we have to have the kind of participation from the PSUs, from the other universities, from the colleges, from the placement and training officers of the institutions, as well as, more importantly, some part of it must be taken up by the media also. The awareness and the campaign that has to be launched has to be on a different scale and for a different dimension. What I would like to start with is that the job scenario today is not as it used to be about 2 or 3 years back. And that is normal, that's bound to happen. There are going to be cycles. Economy is driven in those kind of cycles. And because of that, we must understand that nothing is permanent, nothing is going to remain steady. And we have to evolve, we have to bring out new ideas, new thoughts in order to make these particular things happen. Now, today, if I see that while the, as was very rightly pointed out, that while the number of colleges have increased, number of seats have increased in engineering as well as management, and we are having very low admissions, 40% admissions in colleges. It's also a fact that while these particular admissions are going low, probably this is the way in which market forces adjust themselves to the realities and make way for those people who are able to work out new ideas. They survive, and those who are not able to do that, they will have to be on the past history. So it's now, therefore, the survival of the fittest in the marketplace, and if we do not have that kind of a vigor, if we do not have that kind of a game plan, then I'm sure that things are going to be difficult for those who are going to be on the side watch. That's not going to happen. The second important thing is that we must understand where the job opportunities are. We must understand that it is not always that Infosys will continue to employ 10,000 every year, or TCS will continue to employ 10,000 every year, or so on and so forth. It's not always that IT will have 16% growth rate year on year for next 10 years also. It's also not true that the manufacturing sector, which is probably at the present moment in a negative slump, will also continue to be a negative slump. So my point is that while we have been reaping the benefits of IT, we must understand that IT application in the core sector is probably one thing that we must concentrate on. Application of IT in the core sector is a demanding and important area which we must try to understand, and that has to happen in 3 ways. The first way is that our education system must get adjusted to the competency in the core sector. If we are not able to give the students the right kind of education, the right kind of attitude, and the third important thing, the right kind of problem solving capability, then we are not going to get them into the manufacturing sector, and therefore we are not going to get them employably happy. They might get employment right in the beginning because of the name of the institution or because of some particular gimmick, but at the end of the day, if they are not able to deliver, if they are not able to really solve the problems, if they are not going to be profitable for the organization, then I'm sure that it will be a very bad situation for them. So the point is not that we are only looking for a job. We are really looking for a person who is contributing, for a person who has the capability to evolve, and need to do that is that we must inculcate in our students the self-learning capability. That self-learning capability is the fundamental bedrock today of any particular individual who has to succeed in the professional arena. Things are dynamically changing, and those changing dynamics will need that your evolution, your thinking, your capability, your competence also must dynamically evolve. And that is what has to be taught in the colleges today. It's not in the information transfer era. It is the knowledge transfer era. We are not here now today. The 19th century education was data-based education. The 20th century education was information-based education. The 21st century education has got to be knowledge-based education. What I mean by that is that it was sufficient for that particular time that if you knew these particular data, you could really work out some particular job specifics. And last century, people who could understand where this information is could be employable and could really serve the masters in a very, very big way and could produce results. But today, that is gone. We are not able today to provide the kind of solutions because we have never experienced that. Many of you must have heard this very often quoted statement that 10 years from now, 90% of the jobs did not exist that are there today. And probably 90% of jobs that are today will not be existing in next 10 years. And if that is so, we have to evolve our strategies which are not static. We have to evolve our competencies which are not static. And that's why my emphasis on self-learning, on teaching students how to make possible their own efforts through their own learning, through their own evaluation of learning, how to make themselves relevant, how to make themselves productive, and how to make themselves contributive to the growth of their own person, the growth of the organization they are in, and the growth of the country as a whole. Another particularly important scenario today is that we are not trying to talk in terms of employment in India alone, because employment in India will be there because it's a huge market. If foreign companies can come here and start negotiating and start working out how they can make their profits on the basis of the markets in India, I think we are also importantly to think how we can use our products, our services, our technology to serve other countries and make part of their growth and therefore get part of that growth in our country also. So there has got to be a more global interaction. The competencies therefore have to be global in nature. It cannot be a pocket borough that we are trying to produce students which are going to be regionally occupied or which are going to be nationally occupied. We have to produce students which are internationally employable, and that is why India wants to get into the Washington Accord. India wants to have a competency that is recognized all over the globe, and therefore we must understand that our education system, our mechanism of syllabi, our mechanism of pedagogy, our mechanism of creating these particular individuals must be based on international competencies and not only national competencies. That gives you at least one particular new area of operation, and that operational area is that we must understand how and when to apply our mind in order to respect other cultures, respect their laws, respect the way they function and adjust to that, and then only we can probably survive in their markets and make use of that particular opportunity. If that is not done, then we are probably will not be able to have that kind of a leverage out there which they are going to have in India. The global participation is a must, and global participation means global competencies must be built in. The third idea basically today is, many of you might not be aware, there was an article in Wall Street Journal about a week back which said that the outsourcing game is going to be automated. Robots are going to take over most of the outsourcing jobs, whether it is technical outsourcing, whether it is knowledge outsourcing, or whether it is business outsourcing. IPSOS, an American company, and Prism Crystals, the UK company, is going to be one of the leading companies which are trying to lead this revolution. And that is going to be a huge challenge in employment, because that is the major employment source today in the IT and engineering sector. Therefore, we have to be aware that this challenge is coming, and next 3 to 5 years, this is going to wipe out the business process outsourcing, especially in certain countries in and around India. This challenge, how it can be countered? Now, that is why I wanted to come in and say that the competencies are not only for IT's sake. The competencies have to be IT for core sector sake. And if we do that, then we are able to create services, or we are able to create design shells, we are able to create technologies where we are not only going to do outsourcing in terms of the low-level competencies, but outsourcing at higher level of competencies. Example is automobile manufacturing. Example is services product definition and risk evaluation. Example is being able to have financial instruments and respectively take a market survey on their applicability and profitability. These are the instances where core sectors and interaction with IT can become profitable, both in terms of process outsourcing and in terms of process improvements. The productivity in terms of national manufacturing policy is another particular game area where we must play a very, very important role. Why? Because even today, if we are trying to talk in terms of and compare ourselves with China, one of the most important things is that even today, India can be productively competitive as compared to anywhere in the world. But that productivity has to be ensured that it is relevant. Again, it has to have the kind of dynamics that the product mix, the product generation, and the product quality has to be of international standards. And if it is not of international standards, the products are not going to sell. Whether it is a financial product or whether it is a manufactured product, nothing is going to sell until unless we have got that particular competence in order to produce that component of a global standard. And that is where the MSMEs come in. Why I'm talking of MSMEs? Probably one of the most important things that has contributed to the growth of the country. 36% of GDP in India today is contributed by MSMEs. They are a major source of earning in terms of foreign exchange, and therefore it is our duty to strengthen their hand. They do not have the kind of resources or the kind of mechanisms by which they can have design houses. They do not have the kind of competencies and resources by which they can take out the market survey. They do not have the competencies or the resources by which they can have new product designs. And that is where, if engineering colleges and if engineering students can come in, have a kind of an interaction. We are trying to do this in our university by starting a program that in the second year and third year, when the students have the industrial training requirement, then some of them are required to go into the MSMEs, see what the product is, see how the production is happening, what processes are being utilized, what materials are being utilized, and if any improvement can be used in saving materials, in improving the quality of the process, so that the quality of the product, on the energy spent on the product, and the environmental impact of the product is reduced, then probably we can compare and we can improve and have synergy between what is there as a manpower and what is there as a productivity in an industry. So industry institutions, today we have been talking about industry institutions partnership, industry institution cells, and entrepreneurship parks, and so on and so forth, but they have not really contributed to a real contribution in terms of product development, in terms of product quality enhancement, in terms of process improvement, in terms of process evaluation and testing, and also in terms of creating new kind of ideas in products. There are hundreds of new products that can be created over this thing, especially 4 major sectors. India is very rich, but there is a highly, leapage and porous agricultural system. Can we try to talk in terms of secondary agriculture, where industrial interaction with agriculture produce, with biosystems, and these things can convert the productivity of the productivity of the agriculture can improve, the survivability of the products of the agriculture can be improved, the shelf life of the products can be improved, and most important of all, we can create those particular products which are today not there in the market. That is where the synergy between agriculture and secondary agriculture is very, very important. In terms of transportation, in terms of shelf life improvement, in terms of creating secondary products, these are the areas in terms of agriculture. The second important area is that we have enormous amount of cottage industries. In the cottage industries, there are skills which even a very high quality craftsman cannot have today in the outer sector. That is what we have to exploit. If we can use that particular skill, we can have a hand holding with them, give them some sort of a mechanism and some sort of an understanding, some sort of awareness, some sort of education, some sort of quality consciousness, so that their products are better, their products are this thing. Many of you must have seen the role that has been played in the pottery industry. Many of you must have seen the role that has been played in the ceramics industry, the role that has been played in the glass industry, the role that has been played in various industries. But the impact on environment is another particular area where we have to interact, because the environment is our own. The more the environment goes bad, the more it affects our health, the more it affects our resources, the more it affects the whole country's growth. Because the more the people fall sick, the productivity goes down, and also the health of the nation goes down. And that is where, again, core sector industry people, core sector education can come in and see how the products and their life cycle can be made better, more energy efficient, more environment efficient, and more sustainable this thing. So we need to teach our students how product life cycle, and that is very, very important. We need to bring that into our course structure, how product life cycle is impacting both the quality, the quantity, the environment, the energy, the material, and this thing. As somebody very rightly said, many people do not know that 1 cup of coffee is not only 200 milliliters of water, but it is equivalent to 2 liters of water, because the amount of processing water required, so the virtual water requirements are huge, and these virtual water requirements have to be identified. These virtual water requirements have to be understood, and then only we can probably intervene in terms of how we can make more healthier, more better, more environment friendly products. Lastly, I would like to say that while public sector undertakings are very, very important for the nation, we must understand that the public sector undertakings, many of them have now started going out. They have started working not only in India, they have started going to various nations and start working there. And that is where our particular help can come in. We can really work with public sector undertakings, we can work with defense undertakings, we can work with national manufacturing units for producing and creating better environment of productivity and better environment of assessment and testing services. It is important for us to understand that an institution which has invested, let us say, 10 crores in the infrastructure that it has, then that 10 crores, if we are trying to have that 10 crores needs to be recycled every 3 years or every 5 years, then we must build that kind of a capacity from that infrastructure. Are we doing that? The kind of workshops that we have, the kind of testing laboratories that we have, the kind of actual manpower that we have, it's probably one of the most important things that we are having is the manpower. But we are not using that manpower efficiently. We are not giving it the right kind of opportunities to explore, to become creative, and to innovate, so that that kind of a productivity can be linked up. Just an example, when I'm trying to talk in terms of the productivity of our students, many of us do not give them any particular opportunity to suggest how experiments can be changed. Many of us do not give them any opportunity how new experiments can be created, either on a computer or on simulation or in actual this thing. Why is it that India today, even now, imports most of the test and measurement instruments? Why can't we do that test and measurement, understanding, evaluation, technology development in India? That is because we are not working in the core sectors, and that core sector deficiency will continue to jeopardize our future. Lastly, probably one of the most important sectors, 3 most important sectors which are going to affect this country. You must have heard that the way aging population is happening in India, it's a very, very grave situation that is going to come. So the health services, the delivery of health services, and the result of that on the productivity is going to be a massive impact, is going to have a massive impact. Unfortunately, I can say it with full authority that never ever has India either worked understanding the demographic pattern and evolving strategies in order to utilize or to serve that particular demographic pattern. It has not happened, and we need to do that. We need to understand the impact of a certain aging population. We need to understand the availability of youth power. We need to understand how we can have more than 30 million students every year, year after year, coming into the schooling system and getting into the higher education and still finding employment. These are the strategies that we have to think about. And if we leave it only, everywhere idea comes from institutions, idea comes from universities, ideas, directions and strategies come from universities. They do not come from politicians. Unfortunately, in India, universities have never contributed to that kind of strategizing, that kind of contribution in terms of philosophy, in terms of making roadmaps, and in terms of giving forewarnings to the planners that this is going to come, so do be careful about it, so the planning process can be modulated, planning process can be modernized, and planning process can have a better recourse to the enormous amount of intellectual capacity that exists in the universities and institutions. That is because we are not concerned with our own issues. We are not concerned with our own problems. We have never tried to solve our own problems. So my first request is, try to look around, find out your problems, solve them, and moment you solve them, if drip irrigation can come to you from Israel, I think we can have some similar idea coming up from India which can be exported to the world. My point is that if we do not think that the problems are something that will wish away, that we can wish away, but we strongly and firmly, resolutely applying our intelligence, applying our knowledge, applying our concepts, can solve them, then those solutions can then become our bread earners, because then we can export those solutions outside to the world, which is also facing similar problems. So idea is, can we try to talk in terms of identifying problems in our region, identifying problems for our society, identifying problems that are long-term, short-term, medium-term, and start evolving strategies to solve those particular problems. Moment we do that, we are going to be on a progressive path. Thank you. God bless you.
Questions might be emanating in the minds of our participants. So being a conclave and a very short gathering, so we open it. You can interact with Professor Kak if you have any questions or if you have any comment to make on the line of actions which he has put forth. So you're most welcome. Yeah. Sonia ma'am.
Thank you, sir. It was very informative hearing you today. In fact, something that I could relate to, I was reading an article in Times of India a few days back about, economy and how to start one's own venture and why there are so many startup ventures these days. So in fact, what you suggested, the same, words were there, that you have to look around the problems. And if you, see the problems, the solutions will definitely come in your mind, and that will give you an idea. So we keep thinking about business ideas, and that is how the ideas will lead you to, start some ventures. Few examples that were given were in typically nuclear families these days, when the couple is working, they hardly get any time. So it's only Sunday. You get it, for yourself and for your household chores, and that's the day you spend half of the day buying grocery, veggies and all that. So now you can start something like online portal for these grocery and all that stuff. So there'll be takers for that. Then another was, you get problem because of plumber, electrician, you don't get easily. So fixing all these problems, another business idea. So something like that. Another thing that I also found informative about your ideas was agriculture. In fact, what came to my mind was something like organic farming. even I am trying to find out, if something can be set up, organic farming, but how to source the farmers. I was going through these details about FICCI and Ernst & Young report the other day about organic farming, but they were like, this is mostly clustered in South India. North India, you don't get many organic farming. It's only in Rajasthan. So maybe we could think, in North, to start this kind of a thing, but then we also have to research what skill set is required, how to make youth employable. I mean, there are many sectors where we need to actually, explore the opportunities.
My response to that would be threefolded. Number one is that you are very correct that we need to try to talk in terms of create environment where the comfort level of the people is to be increased. That is one sector which has prospered, which has really created that middle class, and that middle class needs to be have new kind of approaches, and that is where many such organizations have come up. Just Dial is one such organization.
Exactly.
You dial any number and you want any service, they have come up. So similarly now at least there are 5-6 enterprises which have come up with like that. So that is an idea which is working. The point is that can we have some sort of a franchisee of this Just Dial? Not only on a national scale, but on a local scale, because the local things need to be handled, local plumbers, local guest people and things like that. So that particular idea is welcome. I'm also trying to talk in terms of a new avenues. What I'm trying to say is India is probably blessed with maximum sunshine. 300 days out of 365, we get sunshine. How many products are there? How many these things are there? We are energy deficient as far as coal is concerned. We are energy deficient as far as petroleum products are concerned. We are energy deficient as far as our nuclear this thing is concerned. So let us try to see if we can harness, if we can harvest solar energy and bring out products on the solar energy. Unfortunately, in India, there is a subsidy which is available for alternate energy sources, but that has not resulted in creating that kind of a marketplace where lot of choices are available, lot of good products are available, small miniature powerhouses are available which can be put onto the window sill and you get the power for this thing. So many new ideas can come in. This is one particular area. There are other there is an enormous amount of biological waste that is generated in any house, in any particular colony. Especially, we were trying to research out that if there is a tower, I mean a multi-story building, how much amount of energy waste it does, how much amount of biological waste it generates. And if that can have a bioreactor which can convert it into a biogas or some other particular thing, or we can try to talk in terms of how we can have fuel cells inside, embedded in those particular thing and create energy out of that. It will reserve in 3 particular important areas where there is a improvement in sewage control, where there's improvement in the environment control, and where there is improvement in the energy. And that energy will not have carbon footprint as we are going to have in other particular things. So that is another particular area where we can come in. The third important area where we are trying to talk in terms of is that can we try to talk in terms of not creating products which are only for a group, but creating products, general products for this. My point is that at the present moment, we are trying to talk in terms of various applications which are available for mobiles, which are available for tablets, which are available for this thing. Can we try to talk in terms of such applications which are available for mobile, which produce health services, which contribute to health services and such services? These are the areas which are very important for India. Thank you.
I have, let me introduce firstly to myself, Jagjeet Singh Pawar from Metropolis Bhopal. सर आपने 3 सेक्टर के बारे में बातें करी हैं, थोड़ा सा उस पर रोशनी डालना चाहूँगा. सर पहला आपने कहा एग्रीकल्चर. डू यू थिंक कि जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर्स हैं वो क्या एग्रीकल्चर के साथ कंट्रीब्यूट करना चाहेंगे? बिकॉज इनिशियली इट वाज ए वेरी वेरी कॉस्टली अफेयर synergize between an industry and an agriculture, but it have a long-term profits. But in current scenario, and none of the industry can understand this, that the initial investment, whatever they have to make to free themselves from their power uses and their water supplies, can free them for next 15 to 20 years. सेकेंड थिंग, जहाँ तक आपने कंस्ट्रक्शन इंडस्ट्री की बात करी है, तो जो करंट सिनेरियो जो कंस्ट्रक्शन इंडस्ट्री में चल रहा है, जो करंट पैटर्न है, दे आर यूजिंग रिफ्लेक्टिव ग्लासेस विच अगेन बैड फॉर द एनवायरनमेंट बिकॉज द रिफ्लेक्शन ऑफ सन इज मोर पेनिट्रेट देन द एक्चुअल सनलाइट. इस बारे में शायद किसी ने भी कोई भी ऑब्जेक्शन अभी तक नहीं उठाया है. सेकेंड चीज़ जो कंस्ट्रक्शन के बारे में है कि सीवेज वाटर सप्लाई, सही इसमें प्राइवेट सेक्टर काफ़ी कुछ मदद कर सकता है. वी कैन ट्रीट टू 95% ऑफ सीवेज वाटर एंड मेक इट make it available to the drinking standard. But
water recycling is a very important area. I did not touch that because I think that
sir,
it is going
technology of those things are already been available, but government and private sector are hesitate to implement that, either from the engineering college side or either from the private sector. And the third thing what you told about the applications and all, there are very good students are available across the country in various engineering college who are came up with the ideas, which those ideas are identified also, but they been not implemented till yet. As far as my knowledge is concerned, I remind myself that 2 years back in MNIT Bhopal, a student come with an idea of ATM machine which use less power, less less energy, and its cost of manufacturing is very much larger than the current ATM machines. But that been in project and then closed in file. They have never been implemented. So either we have to dig up all those projects and again have to knock the government and say that okay, please implement this, or we have to privatize those, or take a pattern and start manufacturing those products and supply to another countries. Because the major part, whatever we have or whatever we generate or the great ideas what we have, we at the last we sell with a private sector and they export those ideas. We've never been implement those ideas in our own country for our own benefits. So can you please suggest me what we have to do for this?
Actually, you have raised a lot of questions, but the more important fact is that it's not important only that we come up with ideas. The more important thing is that can we implement them. So the implementation of an idea is the more important thing. We cannot depend upon only government, or we cannot only depend upon other people. We have to see to it that initially we modify our own system, and within that particular system we work out this mechanism for implementation. Example is your sewage treatment system or modified ATM system. Now that modified ATM system, you see this ATM machine you are manufacturing, there has to be an understanding, creativity in terms of somebody giving him some initial money, and that should be possible through a bank, or that should be possible through even the college can support that. And once that ATM machine is seen working and seen delivering the same sort of services, then probably you can go ahead and get it manufactured on a large scale. Otherwise, the ideas must get converted into prototypes. Today, making those prototypes is not a very big thing, because there are various agencies which will be able to work with you, even if you do not have a manufacturing plant, even if you do not have a design plant, even if you do not have. That is what I am trying to say. We must try to have these services available in our colleges. If these services, design services, services for material testing, services for engineering testing, services for system evaluation, if these things are available in our college, that is how these new entrepreneurs, these young inventors, these young creators will be able to test their systems, test their devices, and test their outputs. That's what my first output is.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I thank you for an inspiring speech in keynote address. Out of many appealing points, one of them was our universities and engineering college should work as the experienced faculties. And moreover, as it is unfortunately seen that the focus is not there in the faculty except barring some rare colleges. So what is that? Because for training the students, for making them more employable, the basic resource is a teacher only. We cannot too much rely on the outside solution providers for training the students. And therefore, out of your rich experience, I would like to have some light on how we can inculcate that kind of training and focus in the faculty in the engineering colleges.
I will. Course is basically to try to give a course to the 18 students who are there in a MTech program. We divide this course, whole course, into 5 sections, 5 or 6 sections, and a group of 3 students is given one section. They have to collect the content, they have to create the content, they have to deliver the content, and the rest of the students, while one student is delivering the content, the rest of the students are marking him with how the content is, how good the content is, how well he is delivering it, how well he has made you understand that content. So we are trying to train through the MTech program a teacher what all things he needs to know. He needs to know how to create content, he needs to know how to deliver the content, he needs to know how assessment is to be done. This is our first exercise in modernizing the MTech curricula, because we believe that this MTech curricula should also result in creating better teachers. This is the first step. The second step is that every particular project that is being done as a MTech dissertation has got to have a relationship with an industry, or has got to have a relationship with a particular problem of the country, of that region, of that locale. If that particular problem is taken, we allow that particular problem as a sample problem and tell them that you have to give us a solution. Now, if there are such 20 students, and we can even have 5 problems which are being created and which are being solved. Take for example this ATM machine. If he comes up with this thing, I can tell you that we have had at least 4 or 5 very good products that have started coming up through this particular process. And this is basically directly connected to application of IT in our problem solving exercise. We have tried to talk in terms of how to create small miniature chargers which you are wearing on your pocket, and while you move, that charge is controlled and you can charge your mobile or you can charge your other particular thing. So similar other particular things are coming up, and our students are phenomenal. Our students are brilliant. We are only here because we have never allowed them to think and think rapidly and think creatively. This is the second thing that we are trying to do. All our MTech dissertations are going to be related to the problems of the country, and they have to solve that. They can use high technology, they can use medium technology, or they can use totally new ideas in order to solve those particular problems. And then we are rating that. So we'll give the prizes to the best projects, best dissertations, and those who get that, if they need any particular help in converting that idea into a product, we are going to support that particular product. This is the third thing. That means entrepreneurship development we are trying to do through that particular this thing. We are also trying to extend it to the BTech program, but we have not succeeded as yet in doing that, because that is more distributed and we are not having that kind of capability. So my first point is, I 100% agree with you that unless the competency building is done with the teachers, we cannot have the kind of education we are talking about. So the competency building in teachers is our first priority, and therefore our PhD program is also geared to do that. Our PhD program has started very small. We have enrolled 100 students for PhD program this time, and each one of them, I repeat, each one of them has been given a problem which is of India's and Indian origin alone. Machine translation is one very important area which we are hitting. because it was a shame that India could not, in spite of being such a strong IT partner player, we could not come up with Hindi or local language fonts, but Microsoft had to come up with that. But we are now trying to talk in terms of how we can do machine translation, how various machine translation services can be deployed on the mobile phone, how machine translation can be used for various particular online services and online activities, how it can be included in terms of health services and delivery of banking and other particular services in the rural areas. These are the major areas we are trying to attack through our PhD program in IT, computer science, and this thing. The area in terms of manufacturing, we are trying to see how energy efficiency in terms of life cycle changing, life cycle modulation and system analysis, we can approach that in terms of modification of those particular this thing. In terms of electronics, we are trying to go into a different mode. In electronics, we have a lot of capability in terms of VLSI design, but that VLSI design, we do not have the foundry. So can we try to create some intermediate steps in which the foundry solution can be done at a local level? We are trying to see how that can be achieved. And because today's foundries are very, very expensive, you have to spend at least $10 to $15 billion in order to set up a foundry. And that foundry also has got a life cycle of 5 years. After 5 years, the width comes down, and again the new factory has to be set up. So we are trying to see how we can have innovative and still completely agnostic mechanism of production of these particular ICs. These are some of the areas that we are working at the present moment on. Similarly on chemical engineering, similarly on pharmaceutics, drug manufacture, drug design, drug testability, understanding drugs report on the human health and things like that.
Sir, do you run any program in which other college faculties or other
Faculty at any particular time? We are trying to work at the present moment. I did not touch that because I don't want to monopolize on the time. The point is that we are trying to have the benefit of at least 150 people from US who are of Indian origin and who have agreed to guide our PhD students. The objective is, can we try to have a kind of a program, kind of a PhD program, where their knowledge, their capacity can be used in order to create these kind of new areas of investigation, new areas of research, and new areas which solve our problem, so that we can use their expertise, we can use our students, we can use our manpower in creating these solutions. So that also we are trying to invite them here for lectures, and moment those lectures are being conducted, it is available on our website that this is the lecture schedule. Anybody can from other university can apply and this thing. We are also taking research supervisors from other universities. We are having research supervisors from labs, from PSUs, from industry, from other universities all over the world. We are not restricting either the supervisors or the scholars only to our university. It's an open invitation for everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, sir. Our next speaker on the panel, we have Dr. Diwakar Goyal with us. Dr. Goyal is a General Manager, Human Resources with the Airports Authority of India. His educational background comes from a science, then to management, to law, and he has an impeccable career in Airports Authority of India for the last 18 years at various managerial positions, and he is on the panel expert with Human Resource Consultant International Civil Aviation Organization, Montreal, Canada, a qualified instructor by International Air Transport Association, Geneva, and a guest faculty at various management institutions. He has immense international exposure where he has spoken at various conferences and seminars. And the most exciting part of it, he is a celebrated author as well, with over 5 books to his credit. Departmental Inquiries, Performance Appraisal and Compensation Management, A Modern Approach, 2nd edition, which was published by Prentice Hall of India. He has also authored a book, Living a Stressful Life with Joy. So I would like to invite Dr. Goyal to share his multifarious experiences and elate the audience in this stressful recruitment scenario with what all is possible and how Airports Authority of India is managing its cadres to manage the 125 odd airports the country has. Dr. Goyal.